Welcome to the Nano Blitz.
Yeah, all right, here we are.
Yeah.
This is the Nano Blitz finally coming back with another episode. My name's Tim,
I'm Nate.
and we're having a riveting discussion about Top Gun and who has and maybe hasn't seen the.
Oh no! I just found out, and it's blasphemy that Tim has not seen Top Gun, and I mean that just shows you what kind of Tom Cruise fan he is.
Yeah, I would say that I'm a casual Tom Cruise fan.
And I'm not really that big of a Tom Cruise fan, but
Oh, don't be modest, Nate.
I mean I do use his memes a lot, but
You were jumping on the couch earlier.
Oh yeah, I was. I love her. I've never actually seen that interview. I've just seen that clip.
And you see, that's exactly my entire Tom Cruise, experience. It's just clips and memes and, I mean, obviously I've watched movies with Tom Cruise in it.
Well, I mean, Tropic Thunder. Come on.
Oh yeah. His greatest performance of all time, should have won an Oscar, but
he wasn't even credited.
But Top Gun, he influenced that character too, like the creation, and like it was his idea to have the prosthetic hands, apparently.
The fat arms.
Yeah, yeah. But Top Gun was one of those movies that came out when I was young, living in a very conservative household, that we didn't watch certain things, and that just never made it to my viewing, and then I never made up for it later on in life. So There we are.
He wasn't translating. He doesn't even get that.
No.
Because
No.
he hasn't seen the movie. It's
Right. Right.
giving him the bird.
I have watched the clip where he talks about being inverted.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Translating. That's the whole idea. They were translating. That's what Goose says.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
All right, Goose. Hey, so this is not a Tom Cruise podcast.
Yes, it is.
Well, maybe because Tom Cruise is more interesting.
Well, he's more interesting than Madden 21 and more. Yeah, I could talk probably more in this podcast about Tom Cruise. Actually, we probably already have. Than
We got like 2 minutes of Tom Cruise talk.
than Madden 21. Obviously, pandemic aside or whatnot, there's not really much that we had to share this year that was different than previous years.
Yeah, with the way the pandemic was going and the way life was going, it was just way too much effort to try to record another podcast. Last recorded was in October.
Mm-hmm.
To say the same stuff that we would have already said.
Yeah.
Even with we did our last podcast after the first franchise update they did, and nothing they added afterwards really changed the game for us. Really made. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not gonna say I disliked the additions, but they weren't game changing. We knew they wouldn't be game changing.
Yeah.
They said they weren't going to be game changing. They were doing what they could do after the whole fixed franchise hashtag went viral. So
yeah. I mean, basically what we're really saying is that our lives, as boring as they are, well, I guess as boring as mine is, has been more informative than what we could have been with Madden 21.
My life is not boring. It's one adventure after another.
But he still hasn't seen Top Gun.
I don't have time because my life is so intriguing and full of mystery and wonder.
In a world filled with Tim Buller.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Well, the big thing, though, we thought about with Madden 21, well, first of all, let's talk about our league for a second. Like, we're kind of tired of doing the same thing. Everybody's kind of burnt out on the game, so we're mixing it up.
I think that's the biggest thing is just everybody is on the same page with that, and we're like, yeah, let's just scrap whatever we're doing.
So we are in our 6th season as a league, and we're in the playoffs. And when this season ends, we are going to restart.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going to pick new teams. Mm-hmm. We're going to play as owners instead of coaches, so that we have to quote unquote hire a staff. Hiring.
Hot dogs.
Yeah, staff hiring, hot dog pricing and
Hot
everything.
dogs.
Staff hiring in Madden 21 is abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping it's better in Madden 22. We have like one screenshot of staff hiring, at this point. But unless you've played the beta, and you and I are not in the beta.
Yeah, our only league member really hasn't shared anything about the beta with us.
Which, I mean, I guess that's good. He's got that whole NDA agreement, but but he's like told us nothing. I think he's using it as like a tool to try to one up us.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I love him to death, but it is definitely one of those things. He's like, oh yeah, man, I'm gonna get whatever competitive advantage I can. Yeah. It's a beta.
It's
which we know.
And since we're on the topic of the beta, I do see a lot of complaints online about ratings and face scans, and I get it, but the ratings aren't 100% accurate yet.
No.
None of the rookies have the correct ratings.
No. Which is normal.
Yeah, and not everybody has a proper face scan yet because of the pandemic. So they're behind on some of those things. Mm-hmm. I can live with that. The dudes wear a helmet 90% of the time you see them. So,
but the real question is, will Gardner Minshew have the hair or no hair?
They probably would have to give him the haircut.
Yeah, if they want to be authentic,
Yeah. Right. But anyway, hiring staff in Madden 21 is ludicrously bad. I was playing around with it, and I hired a coach, and it said that he declined my offer, and then it said who he had actually signed with, and it listed my team as the team he had signed with, but he still was not my head coach. And I actually went through several weeks without a head coach as I continued to try to offer different coaches a contract, and there was no way to go back and check up on whether or not they wanted my contract or not.
That's because that's just how good you are.
Yeah, and then finally it auto signed a coach for me. And I was like, this is so terrible. So hopefully that's gonna be better in 21. If you got the beta and you want to say something about that, go ahead and tweet at us at the Nano Blitz on Twitter. But that's we're mixing that up. I expect everybody to complain about that when we restart Madden 21, and we're gonna do. But the fun part about this is we're gonna do what we're doing owner mode so that we can relocate if we want to, and we're doing fantasy draft
for the first time
ever. Yeah. The thing we enjoy the most as a league is when we get together and do a draft. I mean, it's a lot of fun. We're all together on the same chat, so it's always enjoyable. So to do it for an extra 2 or 3 hours, this is going to be a whole day affair practically.
Chad's going to be like, could you pause? Could
you pause it? I don't think there's
who drafted who? Well, you want to trade him for a candy bar, right?
I don't think there's a timer.
There is actually at least whenever I've done it. Maybe it's a minute and a half, but
maybe I just always pause it and then let it go.
One thing that I did notice is it wouldn't let me choose the draft order or whatnot. It always put me in the middle.
It's always randomized. There's no way to.
It always put me at 15.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Might have to do some more testing on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're currently picking teams. Jake got to pick first, right?
Yeah, I believe. And did he actually pick Dallas?
I think he picked the Cowboys.
Okay, because my wife and I were kind of like, did he actually pick Dallas? I don't know.
I think he did.
Okay, just making sure.
And then whoever gets first pick also gets first option. Whenever it's your pick, you have to declare if you're going to relocate and what city to. That way we don't all step on each other's toes.
I think we should just have everybody relocate to Los Angeles.
Well, it won't let you because it's too real. If it's in real life, they can't put it in the game anymore. It's not their slogan anymore. But you can only move one team to one city. And something I noticed is they have a couple things I noticed that were interesting with relocation. I don't know when they changed some of this, but Houston and Chicago can be two team cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you're using Houston, you can't relocate to Houston. because I was trying to do that to just rebrand the Texans, like rebrand them as the Houston, whatever it was, the
Gamblers.
No, it was something else. It was the one with the cannon. I can't remember what it was, but because the Gunners, the Houston Gunners, because there used to be a St. Louis Gunners pro football team. So I was trying to do that, and you couldn't do that. I thought that was interesting, and I also noticed that they removed several teams from.
Oh.
So San Antonio no longer has the Marshals. You cannot be the San Antonio Marshals. Not 100% sure. Only speculation I could come up with was
copyright, maybe?
Either it could be copyright, but did they pull it during a lot of the, political conversations that were happening about law enforcement? And they wanted to make it safer. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation that I don't want to get into, but but that got pulled, and then they pulled the Mexico City Conquistadors got pulled. Which I think that makes sense. I get why they would do that. Yeah. And I have no problem with them removing options. I have a problem with them not adding options. Kind of a big deal. And that is something that has not been mentioned for Madden 22 yet. It was a conversation piece about things they wanted to do in the future, was kind of fix relocation and how relocation works, but it has not been mentioned at all in any of the materials we've seen yet. So
there's lots of people questioning about it, but
yeah.
I mean, our deep dive today, because we are recording on the day that the franchise deep dive happened. What did we call it? It wasn't even skimming the surface of the water.
It was a surface skim, not even a deep dive. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even the whole pool. It was just like, oh, there's a slide over there.
Yeah, 5-minute video.
There's a high board.
You're like driving past the rec center.
Mommy, can we go in?
We have a pool at home, son.
No, I want to go in. I want some Kona ice or something like that, flavored ice.
All right, so
My tongue is blue.
Shut up, son. I'm going to turn this car around. So
are we there yet?
Trying to get there. So Madden 22. So we're gonna just jump. Let's just jump into Madden 22 because I think we spent enough time.
I mean, we're done with Madden 21. So
yeah. So today was the quote unquote deep dive video that got launched. It looks like there's going to be a podcast that comes out maybe tomorrow, talking about making Madden with one of the franchise producers, and I want to comment on this first. So when they dropped the trailer for Madden 22 and they dropped a schedule for everything, they said
June 21st was one of them.
June 21st franchise. Okay, cool. And then we got to June 21st, and what did they do? They dropped a new schedule in which they said, oh, here's everything we're going to talk about this week starting June 22nd. And they kind of pulled the rug out from under everybody that way. One of the things they had said, too, was that they were going to drop that podcast on the 22nd. But now it looks like they're actually going to drop it on the 23rd. So the podcast looks like it's going to come out tomorrow. And it sounds like they're trying to do content every day this week.
Except the 21st.
Except for the 21st. There may not be anything on Thursday either. And then you'll get your note recap on Madden.com.
The Gridiron Notes.
The Gridiron Notes will be on Friday, which will just be a recap of all of the short videos and stuff. So the podcast, I think, is the one that I'm interested in the most because I feel like that's going to be the most off the cuff. It's going to be the most conversational, and we might hear things that we didn't expect to hear. Even if we have to put up with Andre being one of the co-hosts, Andre's a nice guy. I've never been a fan of his voice, but whatever. And we've had our own. We've talked about him before on the show. So regardless, wish him the best of luck in everything he does. But that podcast might be very informative.
Or not.
Or not.
I like I'm hoping. I guess the best hope that I have for it is that there's going to be some kind of middle ground to where you hear a little bit more,
yeah,
in that conversation piece or whatnot. But I've just call me a pessimist this time around, But I mean,
well,
track record, right?
yeah. Well, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, Madden 2013 all the way to Madden 22, shame on me, right? Won't get fooled again.
Okay, W.
Well, I totally expect it to be a conversation about how difficult game development is.
Oh yeah. Well, we did this, and oh man, we had to allocate 16.3% of our P time to this.
Yeah.
P time stands for potty break time.
Right. That makes sense.
All right, I guess it would be PB time.
PB
but then you could confuse that with like peanut butter and jelly, or just peanut butter
jelly time, peanut butter jelly time, peanut butter jelly.
He'll get me singing.
I think devs are some of the most defensive people I've ever seen.
Yeah.
They act like artists in a consumer world. And like, I get it. I totally get it, because you're putting your heart and soul into some of this stuff. That doesn't mean it's good, and that doesn't mean we want to buy it.
Constructive criticism is something that I would say almost like a majority of artists, and whether they're musical or physical or whatever, performing, or in this case, development, art of a video game.
Yeah.
Their feedback,
it's tough.
How I mean, it's going to be tough feedback. But they've become very defensive, I would say. More. It's very reactive.
And some of that could be the fault of social media and how people provide feedback.
Well, yeah, that's another thing.
Certainly doesn't help. It exacerbates the issue. Like, people don't give quality feedback. They jump on Twitter and 128 characters just say you suck, with their burner accounts. And so then anybody who has any legitimate criticism kind of gets lumped into there, unless you have like an inroad, unless you have a connection, and then typically people who have those connections then maybe aren't as critical as they could be, or maybe have similar mindsets. Like, I can think of at least one YouTuber who has like a connection with Andre and the staff over there, and he'll give some criticism, but he's just as crazy as Andre is about some things, so
yeah.
Anyway,
we don't
want to get into too much of a conversation about devs, but I feel like this is going to be a excuse train, and I just want to listen to it and be proven wrong, is all.
I'm not optimistic about that, only because of, again, the track record. I want to be optimistic.
When you have a track record, you have to disprove it.
Yeah.
And so the burden of evidence is going to be on the EA team at this point, and the Tiburon team. But we did get a franchise feature, quote unquote, deep dive today. They dropped a number of features. Some of you who are in the beta have already seen some of these features in action and maybe have an idea of how well they work or don't work. I haven't seen really any negative criticism.
Other than the fatigue thing. But which is not necessarily a franchise. Well, I partially is, but anyhow.
Yeah. I haven't heard negativity about it so much. Like, it surprised some people.
And the tuning maybe is...
Right. And there was some conversation about how it really affects your running backs, but maybe should affect your receivers more. You brought up a great question earlier, too, like with, practice intensity and managing stamina. How does that impact quarterbacks like say Lamar Jackson, who are running quarterbacks who are going to put up 1,000 yards rushing, or Kyler Murray, where they are running around scrambling a lot and improvising a lot, like
and even Patrick Mahomes, in real life, having to run for his life because of that offensive line, well, not anymore, I guess, but,
yeah,
it's a play style thing, right?
Absolutely. Like, how will that impact things? And will that prevent people from just doing quarterback, doing
read options all the time.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. We did get an answer to this question from some people who were on the beta, but with that fatigue and with all that training, your players can get injured while training.
Which is more true to real life, so I like
100.
that franchise, but I can only imagine, and again, Chad, I love you, but I could only imagine him not paying attention to this and, like, literally one of his star players goes down. He's like, but.
Yeah, and blame it on the game. Yeah. So I could 100% see it, or see somebody saying, "Oh, I got Madden because my star player got injured during training right before the playoffs."
And he couldn't reset it 5 times to, offset that.
Yeah, you can't go back and undo a training injury, But we've had issues with frequency of injuries, and like we've always had to kind of look at the injury slider, and kind of pull that back. So,
and it's still so inconsistent. Like, you got a guy who's like 96 and above for an injury, and how many times does he get injured? It's
too many.
It's like, okay, well.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because anything should be able to happen in a simulation league,
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, if it continues to happen to somebody, then it's like, well, does the rating matter?
Yeah.
Because the rating should matter in a simulation league. So it'll be interesting to see how that balances in Madden 22 with new ways to get injuries.
I like the idea of, having practices make a difference, like in your franchise, because they really do. Like right now, you have it for development, and that's it.
That's it.
That's really it. Like, yeah. So.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you go and you pick your practice, and it's supposed to be based off of what the other team runs. But we've known that for years, like those little percentages of, they typically do
they're not
45% inside run, but they've never been accurate, which has me concerned a little bit, because this whole new game planning and system that has been introduced, which I've heard nothing but good things about so far from beta participants, but not in depth, because again, nobody can share this stuff with you. But I haven't heard anything bad about that. But knowing that the game has been unable to identify proper percentages of what teams have been using and what schemes they use makes me hesitant that they figured it out and made it more in depth this year. It'll be interesting to see how that works, but I love the halftime adjustment option with that too. And it looks like you might do. It looked to me from some of the screenshots that, like, if you pick something like, we're going to defend the inside run, then if they start running to the outside, well, then suddenly your defense is kind of caught unawares, or has a negative to their statistics when they're doing that, because that's not what they planned for. And then you change the game plan, and you can kind of change that up. So it'll be interesting to see how that functions in reality. And is it balanced well? Does it feel like it's not, I don't know. Like, I don't want my team to get crushed up the middle because they did an outside run game plan.
Yeah.
Like, nonstop, even though I'm recognizing that they're doing an inside run. You know what I mean? Like, my play calling still needs to matter as well.
Yeah. I'm still going to run RPOs.
Yeah, well, that's a staple to your offense at this point.
Well, I mean, it's college football.
Yeah.
So I like college offense.
Yeah, college is fun.
No, it wasn't.
Well, like college is fun in football sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, he was staring at me. I had to look away.
So, the big add-in, and this is something we've been asking for a lot, and this is something that a couple years ago we would have said, if you just put this in, we'll be happy. Now I don't really feel that way, but is staff. We got a real legitimate coaching staff. You got a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and a
player personnel
staff, which includes like 4 scouts. 4 to 5 scouts?
5, I believe it is, because you have the 4 regions and the national.
Right. And well, my thought on that, because looking at it, was that they had like 4 scouts assigned, and one of them was open. So I wonder if you can
alternate.
If you have to alternate and you have to have something that you're not scouting. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you kind of have to pick and choose, kind of like they do in MLB The Show or in NHL 21, where it's like, look, we only have so many scouts, and then those scouts do seem to have like preferences and better abilities. So, like, I think one of them, you could see that the scout was better at scouting safeties. So if you're in need of safeties, you look for the conference with the most quality safeties, and then you assign your scout to that area. But yeah, so there's at least 4 scouts, maybe more, as a part of your personnel, player personnel.
Which I'm really excited about that, if it's executed.
Right, and that does take away training staff. There is no training staff anymore, which I'm fine with. I never felt like that mattered. Yeah. And one of my big questions here is going to be, if you're playing as the head coach, do you get to hire your coordinators and your staff, or is it only when you play as an owner? Because that's the way it works currently. Is if you're head coach, you don't get to hire your scout and you don't get to hire your trainer. So as we've pointed out before, you'd be playing multiple seasons, and then suddenly your bonuses and your scouting will change because your owner hired a new scout and you had no input. You have no idea who it is, but that scout will have a different set of skills, and so you go from getting a bonus on offensive line to getting a bonus on defensive backs instead. So, like, I'm hoping that's, as the head coach, you get to make your kind of recruit your staff the way you want to.
Kind of like NBA 2K does.
Yeah, exactly. And then also like NBA 2K does, you noticed specifically in the screenshot in the video they showed today, there were former players.
Well, at least the names, but the ages didn't match up.
Exactly. And so that made us start wondering, like, okay, it says Julian Edelman is available as a head coach. But
he's 67. But he was 51.
He was like 51 years old. So we thought, well, are these placeholders, or is this an indication that when when players retire, that they could become a coach? And, we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see kind of what happens there. But it would be really cool if they could become a coach. I think you have to find a way to continue to add players to that pool and coaches to that pool. You would think,
and yeah, especially with the limited, I guess that database, the system that they use for that would definitely limit some of that ability.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see, and it does look like each coach has like a preference as to what they want to be. Like as far as like being a head coach or a,
offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna pull this up here. So they have a tier. Oh, well, these are area scouts. Never mind, that's scout hiring. Oh, you know what? That's the page that we saw. That was for scouts, not for coaches. or at least the one I'm looking at, that has Julian Edelman in it. But when you saw it, it had. You showed me a different one, so I don't know.
Yeah, it had like Terrell Suggs, Julian Edelman.
Well, that's the thing. This is practically this exact same list, but they're scouts. It's scout hiring. So you do hire your scouts as well.
Yeah, that's the same list. Antoine Bethea.
It's got Chuck Pagano on there. So I guess you can hire them from, I don't know. Those have to be placeholders then.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're kind of learning this stuff and seeing it as we go, and we're trying to decipher it from
what little information that they're actually providing in their deep dive.
Yeah, but it looks like they each scout has 2 positions that they have expertise in, which is kind of neat.
Which would make sense and be kind of concurrent with other current gen, titles.
Yeah.
MLB The Show has coaching emphasis, that kind of thing. Same thing with NBA 2K. I forgot whether or not FIFA has anything like that, but
with scouting,
with coaching.
With coaching. Well, you don't have coaching staff, but you have a scouting staff.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, but yeah. So the hiring the coaches and all that, it's going to need to work better than it did in previous Maddens. Like, that's going to have to be a part of your off season.
Yeah.
You're going to have like a week or 2 dedicated to that. Maybe just run it alongside the free agency, but then also that could impact free agency depending on how good your staff is. You would hope that would have an impact. Yeah. And then each of those coaches then have a skill tree.
Yes.
And you have to earn skill points by setting goals for them. Mm-hmm. If you achieve those goals,
either setting, I think it was yearly, weekly, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Goal, like you had a whole list of different things.
Absolutely. And then each skill costs so many points, but you only earn so many points per week as well. Mm-hmm. So you really have to pick and choose. So hopefully you don't suddenly get your coaches really buff within the first season, and kind of develop those coaches over time. I like what I'm seeing there because it's more, it's not what we've seen for the past 10 years where it's you get a bonus to re-signing quarterbacks, which never actually was a bonus. Like, it never actually did anything. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Those coach things, other than the training and the scouting, the re-signing and the signing free agents never mattered, in my opinion.
I think that, there was so much that went into that on the player, not archetype, but the player, I guess, whether or not they're more verbal or team oriented, like a team leader, or that dynamic has more impact than that coaching XP portion.
Where is that communicated? Like, a lot of people don't even realize those players have those traits, and that trait's not even editable. And like, if you're creating a draft class, it doesn't pop up. So it's just that kind of stuff is silly, and I imagine there's still some issues with that in the game. But I like the way the tree looks. Again, I haven't heard any complaints about it. I feel like we would have heard tons of complaints about it at this point if people weren't liking it. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple really big critics of Madden be very happy with the beta at this point, specifically around franchise features, not necessarily around gameplay. So you got to feel like maybe they're getting some of this stuff right, and that's what I want to hope for. Mm-hmm. But until I have the game in my hand, I just can't believe that it's going to actually execute well.
Yeah. And we're not really wanting to be pessimistic, but we're wanting to be pessimistic.
Well, it's hard. It's hard not to be.
But and that's kind of why I said it like that.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just. Sorry, I'm usually more of the good cop type thing. You know,
we've talked about this.
Yeah.
There's you're bad
cop,
cop, and I'm worst
cop. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to see both sides of the spectrum, at least the best that I can.
There's only one side of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's Tim's side. Okay.
Tim's side of the highway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Highway's a dangerous zone.
Well, life is a highway.
Oh, that's true.
I wanna drive it all night long. No. Yeah.
Anyway.
If you're going my way.
Yeah. Well, I got it.
I want to ride it.
Anyway.
Turn around, bright eyes. Turn around. Sorry.
I think that covers staffing.
Yes. Yeah, I think that does cover staffing. I guess what was the next section about weekly
strategy and dynamic game day integration. And so yeah, that's
so this is more like obviously, trying to have a weekly game plan and practicing toward that game plan.
Yeah.
And then during the game, having some of that kind of practice or in-game changes actually happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's football or something.
It's football.
Right, Tim? It's like football.
Or something.
Like you have to actually have a strategy other than, well, I'm just going to go back in the pocket for 6 seconds and see if I could throw it deep to my fastest receiver every single time. Chad! Sorry, I sneezed there.
That's Chad ball. Well, I'm interested to see the dynamic game day integration side of it, because I feel like we saw the weekly strategy side.
Yeah.
And if dynamic game day integration just means halftime adjustments, then I feel like they're overselling it. Yeah. Halftime adjustments are good, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But what else is there to it? Because again, these deep dives are very surface level, putting your toe in the water kind of stuff. It's not a real understanding of what's going on.
High board.
Unless maybe you played the beta, and again, we are not in the beta this year, so.
High board.
Okay.
High board. It's like Hodor, but it's.
Wow.
Oh, by the way, I did finish Game of Thrones during the pandemic.
Very proud of you.
I think I mentioned that. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I did, but that's the reason why I was saying high board, like Hodor,
and that's the thing. We haven't had a good podcast to get all of these references out, and so it's been very difficult to stay on track. Well, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how this plays out, and especially in a league scenario. With weekly strategy and dynamic game day integration. There was some conversation that dynamic game day integration also impacted was also impacting maybe some presentation things, and then there was some conversation and some different articles that were written about presentation being improved and having a few different presentation packages. I think I've heard that that's the case in the beta. But I think it sounds like people still aren't 100% pleased with it, even though it's a step in a different direction. But I don't know. I'm hoping there's more to it than halftime adjustments.
Yeah, I would like to see almost like a drive goal type thing, right? Oh, well, this drive, this worked, or defensively, hey, this drive, they were doing this,
Yeah.
Maybe trying to change it up and have a different base coverage, or something like that.
Now, that would be really cool if you think about it. I like that idea. Instead of just coming out, it's like, score a touchdown with your running back. Comes out, it's like, hey, you torched them on deep out plays on the last drive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe come out throwing another one of those to see if they've adjusted yet. Or, like you said, hey, you got torched on deep out plays on the last drive. Maybe change your coverage to try to prevent that.
Yeah. Instead of going man press or something like that, do a cover 4 press or, whatever it may be.
Right. That would be more football related and less arcade feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense because, hopefully coaches are doing that in real life.
Right.
Otherwise, they lose their jobs. But anyhow.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. So then the next thing on the list here, enhanced season engine. And so this one's interesting because the enhanced season engine is what used to be known as the scenario engine, which was only 2 years into its life cycle. And last year we all kind of were like, did you guys completely ignore this thing? Because it felt like they did. Mm-hmm. So the scenario engine has like 35 new scenarios, and some of them actually include cutscenes, kind of like NBA 2K does. So like I think you saw it in the...
Oh, right. Where you're like having a press conference or something. Yeah.
Right. So you might have a press conference and you have to answer questions about like how you're going to try to stop this quarterback. Like, oh, Lamar Jackson is tough. What are you going to do? Focus on the run or focus on the pass?
I'm going to make him pass outside the numbers.
Because he can't.
I'm just going to play contain and make him pass outside the numbers.
There you go. Or they had a cool one with Pete Carroll.
Oh,
and Russell
Eskridge.
Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
He's talking to Russell Wilson about Dwayne Eskridge. Is that Western Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is their
wide receiver out of Western Michigan.
Yes.
And he's saying, hey, you guys were really connecting. You need to like really target him in this next game and that's kind of their way of doing the whole breakout player scenario instead. And you know what? Look, it's the same thing, but it's delivered differently, which hopefully makes it feel more interesting and more unique and adds more character and depth to it.
And also maybe that would also hopefully incorporate maybe even the ability to have multiple players affected by one scenario.
Oh, yeah. Because you're talking to the quarterback about the wide receiver, so maybe hopefully you see an impact there. I would love if someday that became if there was a quarterback chemistry chart or something where quarterbacks built chemistry and threw the ball better when throwing to their favorite receiver or
that makes a lot of sense because that happens in real life.
Yeah, quarterbacks have opinions about who should be catching the ball. So
or during those scramble drill moments, they have a tendency like to look at certain like you cannot tell me that like well I guess you can tell me but like Patrick Mahomes is gonna know where Travis Kelce is at any given moment, especially whenever he's like scrambling outside the pocket.
Yeah, it would just make so much sense. The question is, can they do it? Do they have the skill set and the resources to do it?
Yeah,
and that's the thing.
Big question.
EA always has the resources. It's just a matter of how they're going to use them.
How are they going to allocate them?
Yeah.
And then utilize them once they're allocated.
Right. But I think that'll be unique. I like seeing the evolving of that system. We talked about it when it came out. I feel like it creates storylines, and storylines are important in sports. And we've not really felt storylines in the game forever.
Since Doug Mertens, was afraid of clowns and cross-eyed.
That's right, good old Doug Mertens. And that was Madden 2013.
Trey Wigo.
Yeah.
Narrated that. That was awesome. Anyhow.
They also have a franchise hub update. So we kind of saw that in the video. And it finally looks like a different game.
Yeah, it has a complete, rather than just putting a blue shade to it,
Right.
Like, it feels different.
Yeah.
At least it looks like it feels different.
And it looks like you can access different things without ever really leaving the page. So, like, you can see the schedule without ever really leaving the page, front page, going into anything, potentially see the awards and stuff, and still being able to just kind of scroll back to the main page. The UI does look better and interesting. We talked about this a little bit though. Like the more features you add to a franchise mode, I think the harder it is to do a quality franchise UI, just because there's so much.
Yeah, it's like, and Tim and I were kind of talking about this, how like NBA 2K just, I mean, it's great that they have a lot, but the user interface also requires you to memorize a lot, or like have that muscle memory.
Yeah.
Because I've got to go here to get this, and that kind of thing, and or I've got to do this in order to actually even be able to trade, or that kind of thing.
I think as opposed to NBA 2K, this Madden 22 menu looks more like I stay
simplified,
pretty central. I don't have to go to a second menu type. It's always going to be on the L1, R1 triggers to go through. I didn't see the whole visual depth chart thing either, which like I kind of hope that's gone. I never liked it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
If you want to put it in the depth chart features, fine. But like I never needed that up there. So
I never need it. The only thing that I use it for right now is on my week-to-week training stuff. Practice stuff is, okay, well, how close am I? It's like a quick reference of, well, this cornerback is, 200 XP away.
Oh, yeah.
And I could just go knowing that, hey, I'm trying to focus on my starters at this point in the season since we're in the playoffs. I probably don't want to be focusing on somebody who I'm a draft and develop type guy.
Yeah.
I want to focus on the main course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much everything that they've done for the game at launch.
Yeah.
So
here we are again.
Yeah. Now we talked a little bit about scouting, and apparently this was reported by IGN that the new scouting feature was originally going to be slated for Madden 23, and I guess I don't know if this is to his credit or not, but Sean Grady said we need to get it out this year because it's a high requested thing, and so if we don't have it at launch, fine, but we got to put it in an early update. So it's coming out in September.
Probably the later part is my guess.
Which makes me wonder, and beta guys can answer this question for us, but so does scouting just look like it always did currently? And like if that updates in September, how well is that going to translate to an existing league? Or a league where you're already halfway through scouting, that like you're halfway through the season and you've already been spent a bunch of time scouting players, and now you change the entire way that scouting works.
And that's why we're going to wait.
Right. So we discussed this before, but we're going to wait to buy the game because we want that feature. Scouting and draft classes is a huge part of our league. It's a big part of who we are and what we do. So not having that feature and knowing it comes in September means why buy it now? And then we might be able to get it on sale because they did do a lot of early sales on Madden last year. So maybe we end up getting the game on sale, and then you pay less money, you get it fully featured, as fully featured as it can be, I guess, and you go from there. But I do like the look based on, it's called a work in progress, but some of the stuff they showed with the scouting, we already talked a little bit about the scouts aspect of it, but like when you look at the scouting page, it still has that whole like position grade, how many active players you have in that position. Hopefully that will work when you're actually doing the draft going forward. It doesn't just say that all your players are C overall. But one of the things that we noticed is that they have a mock draft section that identifies what teams might be targeting these players at that, or what player or team might be targeting at that spot, which is kind of interesting. And then these players are supposedly going to go up and down the board depending on how well they're scouted. So
every week. Now, we don't know if preseason's part of that, but at least the regular season, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think maybe even playoffs. It sounds like
I hope so.
Maybe part of it there, because I mean it's They're basically just trying to have it to where, hey, it's actually a real draft board.
Yeah. And I hope scouting starts before week 3, because that would just be...
Well, and that's what I was saying. Like, that's the reason, like, whenever they were doing the deep dive thing, they said every week. So I'm assuming that they're kind of talking about the...
Right. But they also said June 21st. So, like, every week could mean every week that scouting's available. I'm just saying, they're not great at communication.
June 21st, June 22nd, all the same thing,
It's all
right?
the same. Oh man, we'll have to look for some more stuff. But like, I definitely feel like this is the right direction for scouting. Want to see how it actually looks when the time comes, how it actually feels when we get there. And yeah, so we're pessimistic.
I'm not.
Yeah, you said you are.
I said that I'm trying to be good cop.
Yeah, we're pessimistic, but that doesn't mean that you're trying to be good cop. Doesn't mean you are. Look, because of EA's track record, that doesn't mean we dislike what they're doing here. I think there are some universal truths here, in my mind anyway, that look, this game should already be where it is now. It should have been here in 2014. I think I said that to you before we started. It was like, like the features that they're adding, they've caught up to NBA 2K14. Or they're almost caught up to NBA 2K14. They're still light years behind some of these major sports franchises like MLB The Show. I still see them as being behind on for how NHL works, but they're moving the correct direction. And I don't know why these other companies can get stuff done in a 1-year cycle and Madden can't. But I think from year to year, other sports games are dealing with the same thing, where fans are like, you don't change enough year to year to warrant a $60 price tag, which is another reason why we're like, look, let's just wait and buy it on sale after the updates are out. But the more they talk about Madden as a live service, the more I feel like this shouldn't be a yearly title then. This should be a 2 to 3 year life cycle. Because if you're doing quarterly updates on a 12-month game, and we've talked about this before, then like people aren't getting their money's worth on that, because you're having to drop $60 every year for the same game. So I don't know. I would like to see them change, but I do like the direction they're going with these features. And we haven't talked at all about gameplay at this point, but I don't know if there's anything to talk about because we haven't seen gameplay. But I've said before on the show that if you have a deep franchise mode, you can be a little more forgiving on some of the gameplay things because there are other elements that keep you interested and that keep you excited about the mode. So this is probably the most excited I've been for a Madden game in a long time, but I've been burnt enough that I'm okay waiting to get the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the features that we have for our franchise that are going to be very important aren't even going to be out there on launch. Like the biggest thing that I'm also wondering is how are all these enhancements to scouting and coaching and stuff like that? What about trade logic? Like they haven't even like like how are you going to be able to pull off more than 3 like, because how many times does one trade have 3 components to it? Like,
so that's a good question. And I'm trying to remember where I read this, but I believe it might have been the Operation Sports thing, but I believe they've said that they are updating trade logic and making trades more dynamic.
Yeah.
Obviously, we didn't see any of that in this quote unquote deep dive. From what I heard, that's going to be a later update. So we might see that in September, or we'll see that in
probably before Christmas.
Yeah, like November, December.
Yeah, they usually have one for the holiday rush.
Right. It could be January,
Yeah.
Like, so the question will just be when will it drop? Because if it drops in January, you're still only 5 months into the cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or 5 months into the game's life cycle. So
yeah.
But once the Super Bowl's over, it's hard for people to maintain excitement about football if the game's not good enough. So you dropping those things in February, May, people aren't caring anymore.
No, because they're already on to the next draft class and the player movements and, all that kind of stuff. Like, at least me, I'm already thinking, okay, well, how am I kind of already changing my mentality of what team dynamic do I want to go with in next year's version if I can?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, because of, like Julio Jones getting traded or,
it's a big deal.
Or the Matt Stafford trade, which had more than 3 moving parts to it.
Right. Or see where all the quarterbacks got drafted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Darnold getting traded and,
Yeah, and he's getting a lot of praise from the guys out in Carolina right now.
Yeah.
Which is good. I want good things for Darnold. I think
23.
Yeah, he's
yeah.
a young dude.
We'll cover that shortly.
Yeah, he's got a chance.
Yeah.
So, good for him. Yeah. We want to go into that now because I feel like we've covered it.
Yeah, actually,
yeah.
Yeah,
We've covered it. So those are our thoughts on this first deep dive segment. Some of our thoughts on Madden 22. We hope to do more episodes this year. So maybe we'll revisit in a couple months after we have our hands on the game and we see some of these things. But, I'm at least going to do the trial from EA Play. You'll get the 10-hour trial the week leading up to the launch, which is cool.
Yeah, I think what I'll end up doing is instead of getting the game for PS5, I'll probably just use Game Pass on Xbox and just so I can kind of get an idea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And just use that, because I need to really use my Xbox more, I guess.
Well, so with that kind of wrapped up, you brought up a fun little game.
Well, I don't really call it a game. It's just stuff that I do normally on an everyday basis, Tim. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
I'm weird, though. So I have OCD, and this is something that does happen in my brain quite often. Not just about, like, players, but, just kind of things. So, I just thought it would be kind of a fun little exercise activity to kind of go a little bit outside of Madden, but still have an intertwining link to it, and us going into our football fandom, if you will.
Yeah.
And a top 5 quarterback list of quarterbacks that are 24 years or younger in age.
Yes.
So that doesn't include your Josh Allens, your Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield. I wouldn't put up there, but that's just a personal.
I could see some
thing.
people putting him top 10.
Yeah, I could. Top 10. Yeah, definitely. I would see that, but top 5. So it's tough, but this would be at all levels as well. So and that was kind of the little caveat that I wanted to say to Tim. I know that personally, I am not going to add Lamar Jackson in there since he's already won an MVP and he's 24 years old. Like I think he is what he is. We know what he is.
He's on the list. I mean, technically he's on the list.
Technically, he's on the list. So Tim, that kind of gives a little bit of Tim's list away, probably.
Well, I'm just saying a list of players that would meet the qualifications.
Yes.
So like here's a quick drop down of players you gave to me because you dropped this on me like right before we started recording, and I was like, I don't know how.
I did that on purpose. Actually.
Yeah. I don't know these guys' ages. I need to find that out. So like Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Sam Darnold, Drew Lock, Lamar Jackson, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence,
Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts, that's another one. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the list that I had to work with.
Oh, what's his face? Mac Jones, I guess.
Mac Jones, sure. Yeah, he's a first-round quarterback, I guess. Yeah, they say he's doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I'd honestly start him over Newton, personally.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
yeah.
like that.
We could definitely. I think we'll end up talking a little bit in depth here, but
Yeah, but I don't have any college guys listed here though. And doing my stuff from college, I don't think I would put any of them in my top 5.
I don't have any. So here's the tough thing, and because I went back and forth about this, and the college draft class that's coming up this next year, you're probably looking at, Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
The biggest name probably on the list is a kid out of North Carolina.
Hal.
Hal. But then you have other guys, Graham Mertz possibly.
I think Graham Mertz is not coming out.
I don't think so either. But I mean, if he has a big season, yeah.
I don't think he's technically eligible to come out this
year.
He
is.
Is he?
Yeah, he's the same recruiting class as Rattler and Hal.
Okay, so maybe.
Yeah, they're all going to be juniors, so to speak, this year. Even though
he was a redshirt sophomore.
He redshirted.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah.
I thought a lot of them did, but not Hal. But Keaton Slovis is another guy.
Slovis is there for USC. I like Ritter.
Yes, Desmond Ritter.
out of Cincinnati. Like whenever I watched him play, I was like, man, he's savvy. I would maybe not the greatest arm out there, but he's a little savvy. Brings you a little bit of a. Not quite a Jalen Hurts running, but like he reminds me a little bit more of the I can kind of do this and this and this, that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing your list here.
All right, well, I did put them in order. So the way I did it was like, what 5 quarterbacks would I say I want this guy on my team?
Okay, and so if you're building a franchise.
I'm building a franchise.
These would be some of your top choices here.
These would be my top choices. And yeah, I'm going to keep it the way it is. I almost changed it. Do you want me to just give you my 5th one and we'll go down? Or you want me
I think let's just go down one by one here.
Okay, so my number 5 is Trey Lance.
Yeah.
I know, look, any number of guys. I almost changed it to Jalen Hurts, so kind of revealing he's not on my list. But I like Jalen Hurts a lot. But Trey Lance is physical, has a lot of upside, can throw the ball with ease. I feel like Trey Lance is a future star.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Especially in Shanahan's offense. I think he's going to be a good quarterback where he's at. So I would love to have him, but I also think he's a bit more raw than these other guys on my list.
He's definitely raw. Like he's a Minnesota kid, so I really like him then because of my time spent up in that great northern state.
Sure.
Actually, ironically, pretty close to Marshall, Minnesota. Some of the places that I have been up in Minnesota. So, like I love his attitude and his family attitude. Like I don't know if you know a lot about the kid or anything really like that, but like. He really Division I wise, like as far as like big school. I guess he's FCS, so he's still Division I. But
right,
everybody wanted him to be like a safety or a corner, or that kind of thing.
And he was adamant, I'm going to be a quarterback.
Yeah. And I love some of the articles that I was reading even. Year and a half ago or something like that, and how his dad was pretty insistent, like they're gonna see you if you shine no matter where you are. Well, why not pick North Dakota State, right?
Yeah.
He sits for a year behind Easton Stick, good experience, that kind of thing, and the dude, like, he doesn't lose.
No, he doesn't.
He threw one pick in his last game, with less talent, that kind of thing. And arguably, actually, one of his worst games.
Yeah, probably.
That kind of thing. But, yeah, I like that move. I wanted to put him in my top 5, but I didn't.
Okay.
I'm not going to reveal my number 5 until the very, very end.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're going to jump straight to 4.
So I'm going to jump straight to 4. So basically, I'll let you go 4. Or actually, I'll go 4.
Okay.
And then you can go 4. Because I just wanted to kind of see your reaction here with my number 5.
Sure.
It's kind of a little bit of a surprise.
Now I'm thinking. It better not be who I'm thinking.
I don't know. Tim Tebow doesn't qualify for this, by the way.
He's not under 24.
So my number 4, and this list is really, really hard. My number 4 is Joe Burrow.
Okay.
And like I want to put him higher, but at the same time, like he doesn't necessarily have the arm talent, like as far as raw physical strength. He's got the mental.
Yeah.
Like you can't believe. Like I love.
Yeah, but you know who else doesn't have a lot of arm talent that everybody seems to think is fantastic? Is Tom Brady.
Yeah, well, so there's one thing with that is especially for 43 years old, he's got a hell of an arm.
I'm not saying he's got a bad arm, but I think every quarterback has in the NFL at a starting caliber has to have a good arm to a degree. You know,
He's got like his arm. I think has always been underrated.
Fair enough.
Okay, I wouldn't put him. I wouldn't say, oh, he doesn't have the arm. Yeah, sure, it's not Aaron Rodgers, right?
Right.
But it's darn good.
He's not bad. I'm not trying to say he's
So,
bad. I'm just
yeah.
saying that he doesn't necessarily get listed as one of those top arm talent guys.
No, because he's 43 and.
Well, I think even before that, he was never looked at as a slinger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I think it's definitely a conversation.
I guess it really depends on which analyst or scout or whatnot. Like a lot of the analysts or scouts that I've read stuff of or whatnot, they still like his arm even now.
Well,
so,
well, he's winning Super Bowls. You can't be mad.
Well, yeah, exactly, and he's still throwing it deep and those kinds of things. Sure,
it was really nice to see him win a Super Bowl with a team that doesn't cheat as well. That was kind of because then you feel like he's really doing the work.
I was waiting for that. But this isn't about Tom Brady. So Joe Burrow, yes, he's coming off the ACL or whatnot, but it's just one of those things. Like the more that I kind of delve into him, I was like, okay, he's not a system guy, right?
Yeah.
He does have to have some talent around him. That's the reason why he's kind of toward the back of the list here.
Sure.
But he makes things happen.
Yes.
Right? Off schedule. This whole list is pretty much off schedule. Can they do the off schedule?
Okay.
Within that. I don't have Lamar Jackson on my list because he's already established. I actually had to look up his age, and I was like, I thought he was 25, but he's actually only 24, that kind of thing. So
that's all the conversations is that Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are the same age. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and actually Burrow is a year older than Sam Darnold, who's not on my list. Right. This is a hard list.
It is a difficult list.
But I think Burrow's decision making, his decisiveness, he doesn't have that arm, that kind of thing. But he just gets it done, and as long as they can keep him healthy there, I think he'll strive.
Oh, I think that's good. I like what you're saying. I'm gonna admit that Lamar Jackson did not make my list either.
Okay.
I like Lamar Jackson. I think he's a very talented quarterback. And I say quarterback, but I think he absolutely is a system guy that if you are not using him to his strengths, he's not going to carry a team, and his strengths are quick to decline at the quarterback position.
Especially if he gets a big injury.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
I like him. Think he deserved his MVP, but I think he's starting to get figured out. And if he doesn't grow as a passer, which I don't know if he can, then I don't think he's going to be. And look, I'm not saying he's bad. He's not a bad quarterback. But when I look at what I want to build, I don't know that I could build an offense around him. Somebody else could. so they should take him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. He's in the perfect spot where he is to get the maximum out of his potential right now, in my opinion. So, but he did not make my list for that reason. My number 4 is Justin Fields.
Okay.
And I, when I was looking at like who was on this list and who I liked, I think Fields is the more polished quarterback between him and Trey Lance. I think the idea that Mac Jones was a better quarterback than Justin Fields was a terrible, terrible take. I think Justin Fields is a good quarterback. Everything he's doing in camp right now is suggesting that that's the truth. I think he has a lot of skills. I think he's got the right chip on his shoulder. He's got a live arm. I would take him 100%. And I would start him over Trey Lance. So I took Justin Fields. I really feel like he should have gone higher in the draft. I understand he didn't because of team needs and things. I don't think where you go in the draft necessarily dictates how good you are.
No, it doesn't at all.
No, so that's neither here nor there. But I think he is a higher talent than, what was he taking, 10th? 11th. I think he's a higher talent than 11th overall at the quarterback position. So
yeah, 11th because yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I spent too much time looking at these college guys this last year because I was putting together a draft class. But like I like Justin Fields. I think he does process well. I don't think he gets stuck on his first read.
No, I don't think he does either. Having seen him play, like obviously as a true freshman at Georgia, I haven't seen him play in person, that kind of thing. Like, he's legit. He's not on my top 5, but he's legit, and I'll tell you the reason why once you're done.
Okay. Well, no, I think that's, again, like when I'm looking at these guys, I'm like, who am I going to build a team around? And I feel like he's got more upside than some of these guys I've already seen.
Okay.
So.
All right. I didn't put him on my list.
Fair enough.
I saw him trying to take a peek.
Oh, no. I didn't see it.
Sorry. I did not put him on my top 5. He's intriguing. He's definitely that dual threat. I think he's underrated as a thrower in some ways.
Yeah.
But the things that scare me are the same things that, like, everybody knows if you've listened, especially Ryan Tannehill knows this. That I'm a huge Drew Lock fan because of my tie-in with. I have a personal tie-in with him, right?
Yeah.
I want him to succeed as a person, not necessarily as a football player, but obviously the football comes along with as the person. He's just a great, genuine guy who I've personally interacted with, that kind of thing, and family, and I don't have to go into that. But the thing that Drew has that Justin Fields, and Drew actually has a better arm motion. Justin Field has this little hitch, this little hiccup.
I agree that Drew Lock has a better arm than he gets credit for.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm just talking about the release.
Yeah. The
arm motion. Drew Lock's issue is with his feet, not with his arm or his elbow or like shoulder or anything like that. Justin Fields has a little bit more of a just kind of a funky motion, I guess, with his arm.
Okay.
And so that could lead to some of that inaccuracy or whatnot
sure.
at given times. Whereas Drew has had his with his base. Is his hip getting around correctly? Or are his feet in the right position for his hip to get around, right?
Right.
Anyhow, you can go into a lot of different things. I'm not a scout, but I do a lot of armchair just for fun, just kind of saying, oh, well, what's the difference? What is this motion? That kind of thing. So that's the reason why I didn't have him on there. But
sure.
But yeah, I do like him. I think he would be top 10. Like, he would beat out Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah.
Hands
down.
So.
I think so.
Hands down. Both of them are running, they're about the same speed. I just he's got a better arm than Hurts does.
Yeah,
I think even with the inaccuracy issue, he's still more accurate than Hurts is. But yeah, I mean he's legit. Like whenever he went in, against Mizzou and stuff like that, I was like, oh crap, he's running. I mean, he did throw a little bit against Mizzou, but I was like, you gotta watch out. Like,
yeah, I think he's going to be good.
Yeah.
Now, do you want to alternate here and go back to me for 3? Since we did that at 5, or
yeah, sure.
So at 3, this is where I put Joe Burrow.
Oh, yeah.
So I have him just a step ahead of where you have him.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's shown that he can do it at a professional level. I think he continues to show that he can overcome his obstacles, whether it be his, lack of arm strength or what have you. I think he played really well in Cincinnati.
Very well.
And he showed that he could play well at a team where there's no talent.
Yeah, I mean, he made some of those things happen. You know, right?
Yeah, kind of to what you were saying. Like, can they make it happen? I feel like Burrow makes things happen. We saw it at LSU, but it was LSU, and they were a powerhouse that year. Mm-hmm. So how much of that was him? How much was that was the team? Well, then you see him in Cincinnati, and he's making things happen at Cincinnati.
His decision making is just phenomenal.
So good, and I will take the guy that can outthink the defense over the guy that has a rocket for an arm every time. Okay. And let him nickel and dime you. Let him move it down the field. Like, I want a rocket arm, but like,
he has good enough arm.
Yeah,
that's not an issue.
Exactly. So he is good enough arm talent. He has things you can't. I don't think you get better at. I think you either have that or you don't, and I think he has it. So that's why I put him up there at number 3.
Okay. Mine. My number 3 is Kyler Murray.
Okay.
It was tough, obviously, putting him actually ahead of Burrow, because I like Burrow's decision making and overall potential as just a quarterback more than Murray. But Murray, like no other offense in the NFL other than outside of the Ravens, is going to be affected by the quarterback as much as Arizona's, right?
Yeah.
Where Kyler Murray goes, that team's going to go, right?
Yeah.
Good or bad, right?
Right, that's the thing.
Like, I don't always trust his decision making on certain things. Like, the arm talent's there, the off platform is there. He can make any throw in the book, that kind of thing. Does he get beyond the 2 reads? That's my worry, right?
Sure.
And so you have some mistakes with interceptions that happen. He's going to throw more interceptions than a Joe Burrow is, right?
Yes.
That kind of thing. He's going to throw more interceptions than, a lot of people on my list here. But actually probably everybody else on the list. He'll probably throw more interceptions. But I just think, like, he's such a dynamic talent that I would have to, like, he's got all the mechanical nature that I don't feel like a Justin Fields has, right?
Sure.
And he's actually probably faster.
True.
That kind of thing. And so I was like, well, I got to have a little bit more of a dual threat, because he really is. But they really need to just go 5 wide and just let him do his thing.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
That would be cool to see.
Which it looks like they may be end up doing this year. Which is good.
They are just loading up on wide receivers.
Well, Fitzgerald is. I don't think he's announced his retirement, but I mean, it sounds like he's as good as retired.
It'll be interesting to see if he does or not.
But I mean, they got Rondell Moore, who they can line up outside and then just put him in the backfield. That kind of thing. They got him in the 2nd round, and I love Rondell. Like, he's a good gadget guy.
Yes.
But at 5'7",
and then they sign AJ Green.
Yes, they did sign AJ Green, which we'll have to see what AJ Green we get.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Well, if he's not the go-to guy, if he's playing second fiddle, to DeAndre Hopkins, then I think you get a lot out of him.
Yeah, you can. And then they still have, your what's his name? I always want to say Danny Amendola, but it's not Danny. It's
Amendola.
Isabella. Yeah. It's just like he's a faster version of Danny Amendola, basically. Sorry, I just think short white receiver who's a slot guy.
Yeah. None of them will ever be Ricky Pearl, but.
So yeah, Kyler Murray's. This one was a little tougher. He's actually I almost threw him off the list altogether and bumped everybody up. But,
he did not make my list.
It was one of those things that I was like, well, and I'm not necessarily the biggest believer in him, but that's because my next two are just
okay.
Yeah.
So who's your number 2?
This was a little harder.
Okay.
I went with Trevor Lawrence as my number 2. It's tough. You could almost interchange the number 1 and number 2 guys.
Okay. I'm wondering if we have the same top 2.
You probably do. Yeah, I'm thinking that we do. Trevor Lawrence just is a complete package. And my wife is actually talking, I don't see what. I go, have you looked at that throw?
Yeah.
Outside the numbers, outside hash.
Uh-huh.
And then you see that run that he did against Ohio State, and you're like, oh my gosh, dude's got some wheels too. He's underrated in that. He's a really good athlete.
Reminds me of an Aaron Rodgers type in that sense. A younger Aaron Rodgers.
Faster.
Yeah, a younger Aaron Rodgers where you don't really consider how quick he can get out.
He's like Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
He's more like a lot of people don't realize how Andrew Luck was so fast. He's a lot faster than a lot of people give him credit for, that kind of thing. He really reminds me so much of Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
The decision making, the arm talent, the ability to just off schedule, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out with the coach and whatnot.
Yeah.
They're loaded.
Yeah, I like him. I like it. I like him a lot. Talent wise, I will tell you though, watching the draft stuff when he got drafted, he struck me as a Bo Callahan. Just from a personality standpoint, he seems so bland to me, and maybe he's just super composed.
So that's the thing. He's known since he was a freshman in high school. This is him.
Yep.
And that's the thing. It is his everyday norm. He just knows that he is gonna he knows that he's gonna be good. He still has to put in the work.
Yes.
And so his work ethic is, I think, a lot different than a Bo Callahan. People are gonna go to his birthday party.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
That kind of thing. And
will be
I think as a personality, the stuff that he wants to do as a community factor or whatnot, he's completely different than Bo Callahan.
Yes, I agree. He's definitely done some other stuff, but it's just watching his post interview. Now his pre interview, he did kind of chuckle it up, and he interrupted an ongoing segment just to say hi to the guy.
Yeah,
which was funny.
Was what's his name from ESPN?
I don't remember.
The really southern twang. He also does NASCAR. Forgot his name.
Couldn't tell you, but yeah, I don't watch enough ESPN. But yeah, Lawrence is my number 2 as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we got number 1 the same then.
Do we?
And I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, Lawrence is good. So
yeah, Lawrence at number 2.
Yeah.
He's going to have a good career. And
I'll let you go with number 1 since I got to go back to number 5.
Okay, number 1 was Justin Herbert.
Yep. And I will say I was a little bit wrong. I was a little bit down on him going into the draft process because I thought that the system was a little bit of that. And I'm not the only one who thought that, right?
A lot of people did.
I thought maybe the completion percentage and the interception ratio or something like that was a product of a little bit of the system.
Sure.
I was wrong. He's a little bit better at that off scheduled and that decision making going through his reads than I thought.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And also, he is going to limit his turnovers.
Yes.
Much like what I said, like Kyler Murray, of this whole entire list, I feel like Kyler Murray is going to throw the most interceptions in his career of the whole entire top 5 list here.
For sure.
Yeah, I'll let you talk about him though.
No, I was just super impressed.
Yeah,
And
his arm, and he's actually much like Trevor Lawrence. He's fast,
and that's what I think. That's what it is. Is he played the way I expect Trevor Lawrence to play?
Yeah,
and that's you hear how he got thrown onto the field with short notice, and he just came out and didn't look back.
Yeah.
And he's playing on a team that has talent, but is maybe not the most talented. That has a lot of injury issues. I don't know. I think when you see what he did with the Chargers in a division with Kansas City, Las Vegas, and Denver, I just felt like he was everything you wanted your number 1 overall pick to be as a quarterback. Like, who was the number 1 pick last year? Joe Burrow. I'm sorry. I don't know where I'm at. Joe Burrow. Like,
you're at my place.
Yeah, he played. I think he played better than Joe Burrow.
Oh yeah, and yeah.
And he has the smarts, he has the intelligence, and he has all the physicality that he needs. And I think everybody overthought it, which is partly why I'm kind of high on Justin Fields too. Is because I feel like people are overthinking Justin Fields, but this isn't about Fields. This is about Herbert. Like, just Herbert he's the prototypical quarterback that you're looking for. I always think back to that.
He's amazing.
That old Peyton Manning commercial where he's got like the mustache on. He's like 6'6", cannon for an arm. If you're into that sort of thing. And I'm into that sort of thing. So
he's good.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Herbert and have been thinking about San Diego. I've been thinking about the Chargers as my team next year because of Herbert. Like, I think he's the real deal. I think he's good, and I don't think you could have had a better successor to Phillip Rivers.
So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, I almost put him, like, he does this for 2 more years like this. He's in the, like, right below Mahomes. And Mahomes is on his own level.
He is.
That kind of thing. But he's there, like, his arm, so him and Trevor Lawrence, they're that echelon right below Mahomes.
Yeah. Like,
nobody's going to be Mahomes because he's just a freak of nature, like, mentally and physically, that kind of thing. But, like, he's a better athlete than Mahomes is.
I think that could be true, yeah.
It's just one of those things, and I just underestimated, I guess, his smarts. I didn't underestimate his physicality.
Yeah.
But the consistency that he has. My biggest question that is, sorry, we paused because the Maggie is saying hi. Maggie's the eldest cat in my house. I'm wondering what the coaching staff's gonna like. Anthony Lynn was a pretty good offensive coordinator. Essentially, he made some really bad decisions in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
And I think that I hope that's not a reflection of Justin Herbert, but Justin Herbert's legit. Like, he has. I'm sitting there and I'm like, and everybody, like, even me, I was like, well, Tua's the better decision maker. Well, I'm not as sure of that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that kind of thing. Like, I still think I'm still higher on Tua than some people are. Like, Tua's gotten this, well, he struggled. Well, I mean, come on. The dude is coming off of a hip surgery and
the Cleveland of the South, and he's taking over for
they're going to be good, though.
Yes, they are.
They're going to be good. Like, so, I also still believe in Tua, but he just doesn't have the arm. That I mean, you can't. You're either born with that or you're not. Like,
sure.
Lawrence, Jackson, Mahomes, you know, all of those guys, Herbert has an arm that, I mean, it's, Josh Allen, of course.
Yeah.
You know, like, that would be a pretty good comp, too, but he's just not as, he's not the runner, I guess, that kind of thing. But, yeah, sorry, she's being adorable. So yeah, that was. I'm glad that we actually saw kind of. That's interesting that both of us chose Herbert over Lawrence, and that's just because I haven't seen that first year from Lawrence.
Lawrence could be number
one. He could be, but I mean, you're not going to go wrong with those two. I think I could, if I was to drop one out of my list altogether, and I haven't even said the number 5, I would drop Murray out of the list altogether. But there's a lot to be seen here, so I'm going a little bit out of the whim here, or limb, I guess. My number 5 is actually Arch Manning.
Oh my gosh. That was a huge surprise. I thought you were going to say Jordan Love, and I was going to kick you.
No. I thought about doing that as a joke and then changing it, but Jordan Love's mechanics, no.
Can I just point out that the Raiders at EA thought that Jordan Love was as accurate as Tua and better overall than Herbert, and as good as Kyler Murray when he came out.
Mechanics.
Yeah, it was nobody else in the world thought those things.
It's the reason why, like in this whole thing, since he's taken number 1 snaps and whatnot, like he'll have a good day, bad day, mechanics
and consistency.
And it's the same thing that, and I'll be a critic of Drew, even though I want him to succeed. Like, good day. Now he's had a better camp process, that kind of thing. And I'm very happy for him on that. But like, there are times whenever, you know, he's off, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff that he had during OTAs, not minicamp, but OTAs, he was taking too long to process because he was overthinking. Yeah. But then minicamp hit and he's not overthinking as much because he's able to do some of it off schedule. Like, all this whole list you have to be able to do off schedule.
Yeah.
That is the NFL now.
So tell me about Arch Manning.
So I just, and again, I mean, the dude is in high school, so
right.
But I mean, he is like,
he's doing recruiting right now, right?
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. Knowing that family, he's going to go wherever they want, like wherever he wants to go. Yes. They're going to support him on that, yes. Right? And that's kind of a really cool thing. But so he has the genetics,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think he's a little bit more mobile. He actually looking at a lot of people don't realize how in high school, like Peyton Manning was a little bit more mobile because he was younger and more athletic, you know, that kind of thing. And his freshman year at Tennessee, he was a little bit more mobile and stuff like that too. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. So he's got the bloodlines. He's got the support system. Like, the brains are there. That kind of thing. I guess that's the big thing with that. Like, so he's got kind of this dynamic.
The pedigree.
Of that. Like, that not everybody has the opportunity to have in life. Right?
Right.
And there's a reason why, like, you look at it, and so his mechanics are like, for a sophomore, is he a sophomore or a junior now? I forget because of pandemic.
I feel like he's got at least.
I think he's a senior. I think he's
junior. I think he's going into a senior year.
Jeez, what is the last year and a half happened?
Because they're talking about that. They're talking about that junior kid that supposedly just committed to Ohio State.
Oh yeah, with the sidearm.
Yeah, and he's got the mullet. But they were talking about how him and Arch Manning were going to be the two guys coming out in that recruiting class. So I think he's a junior or senior.
I just think, you know, like, I mean, he has the potential to be at the top of this list, right?
Yeah, I would.
It's all based like, I mean, there's a very, very small sample size, and he's not playing against the toughest competition in high school either. But
Yeah.
he lights it up.
He does. He had that receiver though that like caught everything.
Yeah.
That was pretty athletic receiver. That made him, I think, look a little better. But
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done. But
well, that was definitely a surprise.
that's the reason why I did it. Now you know why I wanted to do that the last
man.
there. So I would bump him ahead of Kyler Murray,
Okay.
potentially.
Wow.
Even at this stage, like, because I just think that he has...
Higher ceiling.
Well, yeah, it's like Trevor Lawrence, like, knew that he was going to be, like, and his family background and all that kind of stuff, like, there's people that just get it,
Yes.
right? Trevor Lawrence at a young age just got it.
Yes.
And then put in the effort and had that support system so that that effort can come to fruition.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I just feel, obviously, Arch Manning has...
His best days are all ahead of him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like
He's only going to get better.
Kyler Murray could have a much lower floor.
Yeah.
Guy like Lamar Jackson probably had his best year of his career. You know?
And they figured him out a little bit, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. Wow. Well, that was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was cool. I'll have to figure out what year Arch Manning will be draftable. Make a draft class.
I think it's 25 or 26. No, I looked at it, I think.
It's got to be a few years. Yeah. So I am. I do want to mention before we go that very happy for all the support that we got around the draft classes. We put out 21, 22, and 23 draft class.
Tim put them out. Don't let him fool you.
Sponsored by the draft, the Nano Blitz, but yeah, I did put in 99% of the work on that. So
More than 99, but yeah.
and I just ordered my new copy of Phil Steele's magazine, but it's fun for me, and and that was actually something Madden 21 sucked the fun out of for me near the end because the file sharing stopped working correctly, and we had to like recreate them, which was so stupid. So there were a number of little issues with that, but the 2022 class was the second most downloaded class of all Madden files, and that was right behind and that was on PS5, and that was right behind Bengal's 2021 class, which, no offense to Bengal, I had a better 2021 class than he did, because a lot of the complaints about his class were the issues I had with his class. Overrated players were rated too high, and
the development stuff,
a lot of development traits, and then also my biggest issue with his class though was it was incomplete.
Yep.
Like for most of the year, you didn't get a full draft class with him, and because he's a YouTuber personality, sometimes that meant he put goofy names in and different things like that. I'm like, I don't want that for my league. And that was half the reason why I started making stuff in the first place, was because of stuff like that. So, so anyway, like between our three classes, though, there are three of the most downloaded files in all of Madden 21 on a PS5. They were all three of them were top 6, and for a long time were top 5. So the only reason I think they dropped to top 6 was because Bengal had to recreate his 21 draft class and resubmit it, just like we had to recreate our classes and resubmit it. So his first file was the top one, and then his second file was moving back up because everybody was re-downloading it. So, but I've got my classes are finalized for 22. I'm going to get my 23 draft class.
Sorry, Maggie was like peering over.
Get my 22 is ready. My 23 is almost done. And I'm going to have all of those files, all of the data saved so that I can just key it all in and have it ready to go as quickly as possible for Madden 22.
I will admit, I did none of the data mining stuff or anything like that for that. I gave it input on a couple of things and said, good job. You do it.
Well, if the 10-hour demo goes well enough, I hope to have the 2022 class available day one. We'll see.
Yeah.
Because it takes a lot of time to do that work. And even if you're just doing the data entry, it takes a lot of time.
It's a ton, and there's always going to be one player, like Joe Burrow was a late round pick, and now he's number one overall. So like, it's going to be really tough to to do that. But I think Tim's done a pretty good job of that. Yeah. He'll always ask like stuff that he's like, well, what do you think of this? He's already made up his mind. He just wants to have confirmation.
I have an idea, but I'd like to I always want your opinion because you're much closer to the game than I am, and I'm just trying to take as many professional opinions as I can and take that data and make something out of it. Because we talked about this. We're not scouts. We don't claim to be. So I'm not trying to tell you how smart I am. I'm trying to get something that will resonate with what the consensus is in the community. So yeah, but yeah, very happy about that. So thanks to everybody who downloaded. Hopefully we'll have that out again early so that you can download it instead of Bengals, and you'll have a full draft class in 22 instead of a partial draft class in 22.
And I think anything else, or I think that wraps it up.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Ryan Tannehill, for remaining a listener of our podcast.
Always the best.
Shout out to Jason and well, my wife doesn't really listen to this, but hey,
she supports it.
But as always, play your game, Chad.
Yeah, Chad. Oh, you gotta play me.